All right, good afternoon to all of our YouTube subscribers. My name is Forecaster Nick Dunn. We're going to be spending the next little while just kind of generally talking about severe weather that is occurring across the southern portions of the United States. Your bigger radar pictures looking at a kind of a composite radar for you of what is going on. We have a PDS tornado watch across parts of Louisiana and Mississippi and into Arkansas, and tornado watches for places like central Alabama, northern Alabama, and also down into southern Mississippi and northeastern Louisiana. So again, we're just going to kind of intermittently kind of come in here and talk about things, but we know some of you probably have some family that are being impacted across parts of the Deep South, and the radar screen in the lower right-hand corner is actually from the Tuscaloosa area from the National Service in Birmingham, as they are tracking a tornado warning coming in towards Carrollton. That one's got a confirmed tornado with that, but I do want to spend a little bit of time here, and we have a tornado emergency down near Hattiesburg. So give me a second. I do want to switch over to look at that. We'll take a look at that one. This is a tornado emergency for, it's actually quite a large area, so we'll go ahead and pop that up here. I'll bring that full so you can see. Again, we have a tornado emergency for portions of southern Mississippi. There's a confirmed tornado on the ground here, very dangerous, and it's moving off at about 45 miles per hour. You can clearly see it is very much wrapped up near Morgantown and Goss and Oakville over towards Darbin. Very dangerous looking thunderstorm. That is one that's going to be moving through the rest of southeastern Mississippi and probably eventually into parts of Alabama at some point if you were to track this out and go into Alabama. So a pretty dangerous afternoon on kind of unfolding across the Deep South, and that's kind of where we're watching some things right now. But again, there are multiple tornado warnings and tornado watches. We're going to leave this up here for a while. So if there's anything that you guys want to ask, you're more than welcome to ask us. We may not give you a direct answer, but we'll leave this up here for you, and we'll also kind of leave the big picture up for you as well, just so you can kind of see what's going on. So again, we have a tornado emergency down in southern Mississippi at this time, and again, we figured just to kind of test some things here, and I'll have Brant Warren join me intermittently. Again, we're not going to talk the whole time, but figure we would give you guys YouTube. We just crossed 100 subscribers this week, so we figured that we would come live and talk to you guys for a little bit and kind of show you what's going on. For those of you that are watching us out of the Bell Park coverage area, out of Ohio and Indiana, West Virginia, we'll talk about that every once in a while too, and we'll just kind of go from there. So if you guys have any questions, let us know, and we'll do our best to answer those. But again, for right now, there are multiple tornado warnings across West Alabama and down into Mississippi. We have one tornado emergency not far from Hattiesburg. That's what that bright flash is there on the screen, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'll be back in just a little bit with some more updates. All right, guys, I'm forecaster Nick Dunn here with Brant Warren. We are tracking some tornadic activity across parts of Alabama and Mississippi and even into Louisiana. We'll be watching that very closely. Some of this will continue to trend through the rest of the Deep South. Obviously, there's a very high risk of tornadoes today with a moderate risk of severe weather overall and a very good risk of tornadoes. But Brant in particular right now, we have a pretty large tornado that appears to be on the ground, and that tornado emergency not too far from Hattiesburg.
Yep, and it's right near Goss, just north of. I'm trying to get to my just in Marion County right now. It's getting ready to cross into Jefferson Davis County in Mississippi. And this a tornado emergency is about as extreme as it gets. You get tornado emergencies when there's number one, a high population center that's going to be impacted by a tornado, or two, a tornado that can do catastrophic damage. And unfortunately, in this case, we have a little bit of both, Nick. I mean, we've got some major population cities it getting ready to head up into, but the National Weather Service in their text, and it's very, very rare to see. It says that this tornado is capable of producing catastrophic damage. So that is very strong wording, rarely used by the National Weather Service for extreme cases, and unfortunately, this one has it right now.
Yeah, and right now I've got the four-panel look here pulled up. As you can see, we've got the reflectivity. There's your Hook Echo just to the east of Oakville, down in extreme southern portions of Marion County, as Brant said. Upper right-hand corner is the velocity. That is about as intense of a velocity signature as you're ever going to find. And into the deep south, it's very hard to get something to look like this, so that's very intense. Lower left-hand corner is correlation coefficient. That's your debris tracker. Some debris. It looks like there's some debris in there, but this is also a very noisy-looking signature, so it's very tough to say exactly how much of that is debris. But the normalized rotation product, lower right-hand corner, very, very strong rotation no matter what way you look at it, whether you're looking at it from the reflectivity side or even the normalized rotation product. Extremely strong rotation. There was a report of a tornado about 10 minutes ago in southern portions of Lawrence County, Mississippi. They're south of Monticello. But this is, again, part of kind of a bigger day that is unfolding across the deep south, and we'll kind of zoom out and show you all of the warnings, and we'll take you back to just a one-panel look. But there's a tornado warning for portions of Pickens County, Alabama, north of Pickensville. That storm had a tornado on it near Macon a little while ago, but I've not seen any reports on that one in a little while. But Brant, this is kind of what we thought was going to be happening. It was going to take some time, but this is kind of just one round. There's going to be multiple rounds of storms down in the deep south today. And I may have lost Brant there. Yep. You back? Nope, I may have lost him. So, again, that's kind of where things stand for this moment in time. And Brant, I'm not sure if you're still with me. It says that you are, but that's kind of where things stand. But again, a pretty decent tornado event expected to unfold today across the deep south. Again, there's the overall look at the radar. There are tornado watches from Alabama all the way back to Louisiana. So, and Brant, you're back with us?
I am.
Yep. So I was just saying that this is kind of what we expected today, but this is only round one of thunderstorms. There's going to be multiple rounds between today and tonight.
Yeah, we're kind of listening. I'm kind of listening in the background here. A lot of the weather community knows who James Spann is, and I'm currently listening to him. And he's explaining that in Alabama right now, it is Central Time. So you're talking an hour earlier than us. So you're talking about 4 o'clock right now in Alabama. And he's saying that the threat for Central Alabama is going to go until a little after midnight. So they've got about 8 hours of this, and as this first wave trucks across Alabama, you're going to have another wave come in later tonight, and that also has the potential. It's just because the atmosphere we have down here, Nick. I was looking at some of the dew points earlier, and when you get the temperature and dew point very, very close together, that shows you that you have a very ripe atmosphere, very moist atmosphere that's conducive to severe weather. And right now, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the temperature is 69 right now with a dew point of 67. So that's about as close as you can get without, you can't go over it. So that's about as close as you can get, and that is shows that the atmosphere is very conducive today, Nick, for these type of tornadoes. And if anybody remembers April 27th, 2011, I'm sure that'll ring a bell with a few of you out there. The dew points were just about as close as they are now. So this is the type of situation we're dealing with, a very, very dangerous atmospheric setup today.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. I'm adjusting a couple of things here real quick. But as you can see, we still have that tornado emergency. We've got the full picture pulled up here, but we still have a PDS tornado watch back in Mississippi. There's actually some more storms about to move back into that area, so that's going to be it's going to be a very long day for some of you across the Deep South. We know that some of you here on YouTube, from what we saw earlier this week, do have some family members down in this neck of the woods, so we figured just for a couple minutes we would come live. And I'm going to leave the stream up for a little while. I'm also going to be testing some things, so you might see some different things going on in the background. But eventually later on this afternoon, or maybe within the next couple of hours, we will probably do a quick Facebook Live for those of you watching up in the Ohio Valley, give you an update on what we're watching for tonight. It's a very complex setup, very conditional risk of severe weather, because we could see that potential for a couple of isolated severe storms up in the Ohio Valley, but we'll talk about that later as we get maybe within the next hour or two. A lot to watch, a lot that has to happen in order for this risk to verify. But Brant, the other concern is some flash flooding, mainly across the Tennessee Valley. But some of these storms, if you look at the overall radar movement, they're just kind of training across the same areas over and over and over again, and that's not very good either. That just kind of exacerbates what's already going on.
Yeah, and if you look at the I don't know if how far you can loop it, Nick, but if you look at the past 24-hour radar, they had a wave of storms go through there this morning that dumped a lot of rain, especially in southern Tennessee and northern Alabama. And if you look at the radar right now that you have up, you can clearly see there's those dark reds that indicate maybe a little bit of thunder in between, but very, very heavy rain. Those yellows and those greens are widespread across a large portion of the Deep South. And as when this wave's come through, it's going to dump a lot of rain. And as we said, Nick, there's a chance for another wave with some more rain later tonight. So right now I'm counting about 3 flash flood warnings down there right now. I'm expecting a lot more because this is, as you said, a lot of rain.
Yeah, and with that again, what you see here on the screen, I know I don't have tornado emergency listed up in the top in our logo there, but anything you got a green box, your flash flood warnings, yellow flashing boxes are severe thunderstorm warnings. The red flashing boxes are your tornado warnings. It looks like now there's one for northern Tuscaloosa County, and there's also, that's not too far from Birmingham. The flashing purple and white box, that's your tornado emergency. Again, that's about as extreme as it gets. I try to make that as noticeable as possible. And then your pink box, that's your PDS tornado watch, PDS tornado watch. Brant, they did not go PDS for central and north central Alabama and southern Tennessee, and I was a little shocked by that one a little bit, just based on what they had issued downstream across Mississippi.
Yeah, and I think it's I'm not sure exactly why they did that, because of course, we're not at the SPC and the weather offices and collaborating to issue these. It may just be because the atmosphere is becoming a little bit more stable. That's taking it lightly. I just want to say that when I say that, it means that it's not as ripe as what would be back in Mississippi and Louisiana when we saw those storms come through earlier. Now, I agree with your point, Nick, that it is it's very dangerous, and it is surprising that it didn't follow through with that PDS watch. But I will say we still do have a PDS watch for parts of Mississippi, and the reason for that being is the atmosphere is ripe, and you get these tornadoes like you see under the. I don't know if you could take that velocity picture of that tornado emergency again, and that is the most impressive velocity signature. Very noisy, but very impressive velocity signature I have seen in a long time. And I do want to talk about that new tornado warning in Tuscaloosa and Fayette when you're ready. Okay, so this is going to be for, I'm just trying to pull up the information here. It's going to be for northern Tuscaloosa County, and it's going to be for southern Fayette County. So very familiar with this area because of the past weather events. We spent a lot of time analyzing that. So this is going to, it's almost approaching Palmetto right now. It's going to be south of Fayette, Newtonsville, Mooresbridge, Samantha, Berry, all those communities in it. Just trying to see. So you're going to have US 43 right in the middle of this too, as this tornado. And Nick, this is a line. It's kind of a cluster of circulations, I'd say. And there's no saying where the next tornado could per se spin up or where a circulation could form, because we've had numerous where it's bounced back from the northern side of this cluster to the southern side and a little bit in between. So this is the most dangerous type, in my opinion, to kind of predict where they are, because they can bounce around so often, and they're not very strong circulations. They're weak, but they're all over the place for a short period of time.
Yeah, there's your velocity signature. Again, lots of greens and blues. Very strong winds coming into the storm one way or the other. And if you're not getting a tornado, there's probably some pretty strong winds. But I'll tell you, way out ahead of that, there's plenty of heavy rain falling out in advance. So this tornado, if there's one down, is going to be completely rain wrapped. You're not going to be able to see it. And that's going to be kind of the theme of the day for most of the storms across the deep south. And it tends to be that way just with the amount of moisture that's in place. You're right next to the Gulf of Mexico. Very impressive moisture transport coming in, and thus that's why these storm modes are very messy. You do get some lines, but if you look out ahead of even some of the clusters, there's even other showers and thunderstorms out ahead of that. So if you're trying to get a view, you're not going to see it because of the fact that, well, you have other storms that are out there. Even if the storm is past and you're trying to look back into it from behind the storm, you're not going to see it just because of the fact there is that much moisture out there today, and we'll have to watch that closely. But again, we just wanted to come live for a couple minutes and talk about these. I'm going to leave the stream up, going to be testing some things, and you guys can kind of just follow along, and I'll put the big picture back into motion, and I'll go back to leaving the tornado emergency for the time period in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. I'll bring that back up in just a second so that you guys can see that. Again, that's still a tornado emergency, not far from Hattiesburg, so thankfully it's a little ways away from one of the bigger populations in Mississippi, but there's still a tornado emergency in effect for portions of Covington and Jefferson until 4:45. So that's where things stand there. Again, we'll go back to leaving this, and perhaps we'll come back in a little bit and talk some more. But again, within the next hour or two, be checking back with us because we will have a Facebook Live update for those of you in the Ohio Valley. And Brant, I wouldn't be surprised if these storms are going to continue down in the deep south for at least the next probably 6 to 10 hours. Probably it's going to be a long night for those folks.
Yeah, I was gonna say about 8 to 9. So you're right in the ballpark there. I would tend to agree with you because there's a lot of energy to work with, and it's just one of those days where it's very rare where we have the setup we do. And we're going to get multiple rounds until the energy can be fully tapped and these storms can start dying out. But we're a long ways away from that starting. We're about a full workday length away from starting to see these storms kind of slow down and kind of weaken. So.
Yeah, real quick, here's the SPC outlook. I guess I could show those two real quick. We still have a moderate risk for most of eastern Mississippi, almost all 67 counties in Alabama, and portions of Georgia. That even includes the Atlanta metro, close to Macon, but also you got Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Demopolis, Montgomery, Huntsville, Jackson, all under moderate risk. When we zoom out and give you the entire picture, really, it's just the eastern half of the country today. A lot of places under risk of severe weather. That includes us in the Ohio Valley. Again, we'll talk about that probably in the next hour or two. And then tomorrow, that risk actually shifts to the east. You can see that there's a marginal risk as far north as Buffalo. There's an enhanced risk along the East Coast. Now, keep in mind that most of this will be during the first half of the day tomorrow, as storms will be ongoing, likely in linear form. There also will likely still be some supercells embedded there too. But yeah, that is just an impressive overall setup. When we look at the...
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, do me, I know you're talking about that, but when you get done with that, can you take the reflectivity from the Columbus Air Force Base in, I think it's just going to be technically Jackson, Mississippi, and look at that storm near Hattiesburg? Look at the reflectivity. Look at the size of that donut hole that's showing up, operator. I don't know if it's going to show up on yours, Nick, but I see it very, very clearly. I can see if I can send this to you real quick. Okay.
Yes, let's talk about this. So what Brant is referring to is, folks, this is likely a destructive, extremely dangerous tornado now in progress, just passing through Bassfield, Mississippi. There's your hook echo. There's your donut hole. That's what Brant's alluding to right there in the center. You've got reflectivity, strong returns on either side. If we go over to correlation coefficient, there's your tornado right there. It literally looks like, boy, Bassfield, that was really close. I'm willing to bet that at least some portion of Bassfield has taken a hit. There's the newest scan. Those deep blues, those are negative values. So what happens is the radar, it shoots out a beam, and when it gets those echoes back, if something doesn't match, it gives off a negative return, and that's what we're seeing there east of Bassfield. That is a very large tornado in progress, and that is not something that you want to take light. Go back to reflectivity. There's your debris ball. That's a very healthy looking debris ball there just to the east of Bassfield. And that's going to be heading up towards Collins and Seminary. Sanford, this might miss you, but this is why we have a tornado emergency in effect. That's a very dangerous supercell, very large. You have a lot of heavy rain and hail on the north side. And Brant, this is not a small supercell by any means. This is rather large. I mean, you're talking, there's rain and maybe even some small hail as far north as Mount Olive, all the way up in the northern portions, way outside the polygon, and then you go all the way down to the southern portions. And that's where we have our debris ball now.
Yeah, and this is I'm just looking at some reports here, but this is one of the healthiest supercells that this year, in my opinion, that I've seen. It's a classic, as you said, supercell where you've got a lot of rain to the north, you get a little bit of hail involved, and then you've got your debris ball on the far southern flank of that storm. And Nick, that it's fair to say that when we see a signature like that, 9 times out of 10 there is a tornado, a fairly large tornado on the ground right now. So when it went through Bassfield, it went through 2 state routes. You got Mississippi State Route 35, and you've got Mississippi State Route 42. So hopefully nobody's driving. But if you do get caught up in this, try to pull over. Don't pull over an underpass. Try to find the nearest sturdy building and get in there right away. Now we do have something working to our advantage here. Is it's once it gets past Bassfield, before it gets to Collins and Seminary, it's a relatively sparse populated area of the state. There's a lot of trees and a lot of a few rivers and just some stuff like that to hopefully minimize the human death toll from this. But the tornado that's down right now, that is probably causing extensive damage to whatever is below it right now.
Yeah, there's your normalized rotation. You see those reds? That's a sign that this is likely a strong tornado, meaning an EF2 or larger, just based on the signatures that we're seeing here. We go back over to velocity. The velocity is maxed out, folks. This is about as dangerous as it gets, and that's a very large area maxed out. This could be this could be a wedge tornado. I would not be surprised. Right now, looking at the gate-to-gate shear, you're looking at easily 180 miles per hour in this neck of the woods right now. So that is a very dangerous tornado. That's why it is labeled catastrophic. That is impressive. Let me see if I can. I'll try to see if I can get a 3D scan to pop up here. Let's see what it looks like here before I show it to you.
Wow, that is a very dangerous tornado.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I think I do have the. Give me 1 second. I want to pull this up. I think I do have the tornado on the. Yeah. I'll go ahead and pull this up. Give me just a second here. I'll have to add this in. But we got a 3D look at this. There it is. And this right here shows you there's your rotation, and it is maxed out. And that is likely your tornado right there. That is likely your tornado. We'll kind of zoom in on this just a little bit and show you. But that is likely your tornado right there. This is not something that we can always show you, but that is very, very intense. We go back, if you look at the velocity, when you're looking at it from the very bottom, you can clearly see the reds and greens are touching, and it is just nasty. That is not something you want to mess with. If we go and look at it from this perspective, again, there's another indication of just how strong this tornado is. There's going to be that's not something that is going to settle down anytime soon. There's nothing out ahead of this to prevent it from slowing down. We take you back over to the standard 2-dimensional look, and as you can see here, again, velocity is maxed out. There's actually a donut hole in the reflectivity. That is a sign that this is likely a very, very large tornado. And I'll tell you, we go back a couple scans, Brant, I think this has been on the ground since before Bassfield. Big time.
I think it has. I think it kind of got wrapped up in itself for a little bit there, and my goodness. I mean, that's something you would see out in just by this radar image, because again, this is Dixie Alley, but it's not as common as you would see something like this out in the plains. So I think it's been on the ground. As I said, it crossed 39 and 42 down there just near Bassfield. It's a very, very noisy velocity signature, so it's not easy to pinpoint where the tornado is. But now that we have that correlating with reflectivity, we can clearly see where it is, because Nick, as you said, donut holes are probably the most evident, other than the debris, the correlation coefficient, but debris balls are the most evident that there is a very, very large tornado on the ground doing extensive, as the National Weather Service puts it, catastrophic damage. And that is what we have right now with that. I do see that I have a red TVS, Nick, as you mentioned, that means it is maxed out. So you can't get any higher than what the radar is already saying.
Yeah, and the correlation coefficient, just for reference, we're talking some values in the deepest blue here of around 20, which again, the lower the number, the worse the debris field is. So this is a very large tornado, and it looks like it's rather wide. This could be a rather wide tornado. That's not something that I would want to mess around with. Again, there's your velocity. It's maxed out. There's a donut hole here. You don't see this very often. Even if I take off, again, so this is kind of this is how noisy the radar is. But if I turn on what we call the de-alias velocity, that kind of takes out some of the noise and shows you the wind speeds. But folks, even away from the tornado, there are some destructive, damaging winds. There's probably some very good rear flank downdraft winds that just came through Bassfield as well. So hopefully everybody's okay. I've not seen anything yet on social media, but I'm sure it'll take a couple of minutes to get that kind of data. We go back to reflectivity again. Your debris ball is still very, very much present, and I've not gotten an update here for a couple of minutes. So hopefully the Jackson radar site is okay. I've actually not gotten any data in about 7 minutes, so hopefully everything is going okay. I might have to switch and come back to it, but that's a good look at it there from the Jackson, Mississippi site. Let me try to pull up let me pull up my other source here and see if I can get it to work, because I've not had data in several minutes on this.
I will say that when we have this type of thing, it's as an example of us. The entire weather community is focused on this, and we get a lot of information flowing in a short period of time. We're based in Ohio, but we're covering stuff in Mississippi, so that shows you that other people do that as well. And the entire, I mean, the whole weather community right now is focused on this one storm, and there is a huge flow of information that we're getting in. So it's kind of hard when everybody's focusing on one storm and flooding. The source that I use is Twitter to try to dissect the information and get what we can out of it. But I will say that everybody that I'm seeing right now is gravely concerned about this people in this path of this tornado.
Yeah, I've got a new scan now finally, but that debris ball is still very much present, and I do want to switch sources for just 1 second. I'll show you this. There is your tornado emergency. The TVS as of last scan was at 13. We don't see numbers that high. I thought the max was 10 for this particular product. So to see that at 13, that's even more concerning that we do have likely a very large tornado on the ground, likely a wedge. It's coming towards Seminary now, and again, that is not something that I would want to mess around with. I would be in a safe place. I would not even try to go out and see this right now. This is not something that that's not something that I want to mess around with. There's a better look at that tornado emergency. Again, I've made it about as stick out as much as I possibly can, but there's your track. The Weather Service still saying that this is down. Absolutely confirmed large and destructive tornado near Tilton, 11 miles north of Kokomo, Mississippi, not Indiana, because I know we do have some folks not too far from Kokomo, Indiana, but moving northeast at 45. And this has been on the ground for some time, based on what we can see. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get at least a warning soon for places like Ellisville, Laurel, and Soso. And I hope I pronounced that correctly, but we'll continue to watch it. That is just dangerous. We don't see that very often. And like Brant said, this is something that we see out in the plains. This is not something that we see in our neck of the woods. And actually, Brant, now that TVS marker's turned to purple, so that's even more indication that this is dangerous and still on the ground.
Yeah, and I think it speaks volumes, Nick, that as you just said, you thought that the product only went to 10, but with how strong this tornado is, it's safe to say, and I think in both of our opinions, that the numbers are off the chart. With the specific radar source you're using, we haven't seen it above 10, and the fact that we're seeing it above 10 just speaks volumes. It goes above where we thought it was maxed out, so that speaks volumes as to how strong this tornado is, Nick.
Yeah, and Brant, the latest velocity scan that I've got pulled up here, gate-to-gate shears exceeded 200 miles per hour. So, and it's very, and this, I'm going to be honest. Based on what I'm looking at, I don't know that this is absolutely really a very noisy signature. I think this is a legit signature. I think the tornado is just that big. I wouldn't be
Yep.
surprised. But right now in the greens
And
and
when you're
blues, yeah, go ahead.
when you're talking 200 miles per hour, now this is just based on radar, so the ground truth could be a lot different. But you're talking a high end, low end, high end EF3, low end EF4. So this is a very very big tornado.
Yeah, Brant, if you look at the velocity, I'm not. I know you sent me a couple of pictures, but just to kind of maybe
Yeah, I'm
even
just
just
I'm just putting those there because I want to save them.
yeah, no, I was gonna tell you to do the same thing with this, but right now our greens and blues, the highest wind that
New
I can
tornado
find.
emergency.
Yep, and that's not surprising, but the highest greens and blues value that I can find right now is at 123 miles per hour, and that is right next to
Ooh.
something that's right around 70. So we have pretty much now got to 200 miles per hour. In
And
fact, yeah, go ahead.
I will say that there is a new tornado warning for the same place as this tornado emergency just went through. So the southern end, south of Monticello in Lawrence County, you're dealing with another tornado warning for Bassfield. So Bassfield, same area where this destructive tornado. I am seeing some damage pictures coming on Twitter now, but it's big. Another tornado warning covering Bassfield, the same area that just got hit just a little bit ago.
Yeah, I think if that continues on its track, it might miss just northwest, but it's too soon to say. Let me take you back to the 3D look because it is still just about as scary as can be. There's your 3D look, and there's your tornado. And in fact, that entire the entire surface there is just rotating right at the low levels. Again, you can kind of see that. I'll kind of zoom it in a little bit. Look at it from that's going to be the east side, looking back into it from the east. And there's your tornado right there. Those reds and whites and yellows and greens that you see very close to the surface. This is your tornado. It's like a very large wedge type tornado. And again, there's a look at it too from another derived product. There's your tornado right there on the ground. Very dangerous. Not something to toy around with this afternoon. We'll take you back and look inside. Now, look, thankfully, this is going to be crossing in between two communities, in between Collins and Seminary, but still, I would not mess around with this one. I'm going to get a new 3D look at
And
this too. Yeah, go ahead.
that is US one, or sorry, that is US 49. So that's a very major thoroughfare between Hattiesburg and the Jackson metro area.
Yeah, in fact, let's go back now to 3D. I've changed the view just a little bit so we can watch it more as it continues to go through. Sorry about the moving there. I moved the wrong box. But as you can see, looking at it again from the east side, there's your tornado. I mean, just all the way around. And I'll even zoom in a little bit again so you can see that's your tornado right there. That's not something you see every day. And I know it's April down in the deep south. This is not unheard of. This is not unheard of. We get tornadoes in the deep south quite often in the month of April, but boy, something of that signature, we just don't see that very often, and I don't see any signs of it letting up anytime soon based on some of the latest scans that we're seeing there. So, again, new tornado emergency now for Heidelberg, Sandersville, Laurel, Ellisville, So-So, and there's the new one there on the backside. That one was also beginning to show some signs. Okay, there might actually be something down there as well. Let's zoom into that one for a second. The normalized rotation product is suggesting that
Are you
there's
talking about the one to the south there?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, there's your
I do
yeah,
I do say that
I think that one's on the ground too based on normalized rotation. We're seeing some very bright yellows. This was kind of the indications that we had right before it came into Bassfield, and we knew then it was on the ground. So
Yeah,
there
and
could
we
be two very big
also
ones. Yeah, go ahead.
there is also a confirmed tornado in Tuscaloosa County in Alabama.
Okay, so that gives us three. Let's see, I can't look at all three, unfortunately. That's too far away from the Jackson site, but oh, wow, the normalized rotation product. Looked at this in between Collins and Seminary. Completely white. Again, maxed out. Just take that in for a second. That is impressive. The product only goes to 3, and it is, I mean, there are values well over 4 in here on the normalized rotation product. So that is really impressive. The rotation is very strong even at 3,000 feet off the ground. It's still very strong, and it goes all the way up to almost 6,000 feet at the. And there's the latest scan, and it's so maxed out that it doesn't even know what to put in here. Let's go over to velocity. There's your donut hole on velocity again. Impressive, impressive stuff. It took 5 minutes to get a new scan there, but boy, that is not something you take very lightly. That is something you've got to take seriously. Gate to gate shear for what we have is reading at about 160 miles per hour. But I guarantee you, if we saw, okay, there. I took off the alias part, and let me see if I can find something a little bit stronger. Even I don't think we're going to. So, but again, it's maxed out, folks. Don't mess around with this.
So I will say that there is. I will say that there is a specific mesoscale discussion out for this storm in particular, just this storm, and we don't see that often. The SPC with this mesoscale discussion says that there's a violent tornado with potential peak winds of 170 to 205 miles per hour. So to see a mesoscale discussion put out for a particular storm, Nick, we don't see that. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, it is, and that's wow. That's not something we see every day. Yeah, let me go back, and I'm going to take a picture of the velocity. I want to go back to when it was completely. There we go. I'm just kind of analyzing things from a couple frames ago too, because like I said, I've got a very, very high suspicion that there's just something extremely massive going on there.
Yeah, and the SPC is also indicating that this is likely just from preliminary radar data that it could be at EF4 or EF5. So that is confirming what we said earlier.
Yeah, and that in itself is something we don't see from the SPC even very often. So again, that's really speaking some volumes. Okay, now the velocity scan is back and not donut hold. So let's go back and look at that. Let me switch it back over to that. There we go. So again, there's your bright blues. Again, seeing winds well over 100 miles per hour in that spot. And then, yeah. So right now I've got it at about 204 miles per hour gate to gate shear. That is, again, likely EF4, EF5 status. And we're looking at 3,000 feet off the ground. So that's relatively low speaking when we're seeing that kind of signature. And if we look at the base velocity, even going all the way up through the atmosphere, there's at 2.4 degree tilt, and it is still there. And that means we're looking at 13, 14, 15,000 feet, and we're seeing that kind of signature. We go to the correlation coefficient. There's the lowest tilt, a ton of debris now. That is a very large tornado. That's likely, I don't usually say this, but that could easily be 1 mile wide. We go up to the next.
I think it is.
We go up to the next.
I would.
Yeah. Even going to the 2.4 degree tilt, there is still debris. And it means we're looking at debris well over 13,000 feet off the ground. So if you're out ahead of this, you may even see debris falling before the tornado even gets to you. We don't see values like that very often. That just kind of speaks volumes to what we're seeing. But yeah, Brain Tiger, I think this tornado could easily be 1 mile wide, and now we have another donut hole in velocity. But wow, that's a lot to take in right there. And then on the backside, on behind this, increasingly concerned that there's a tornado on the ground with this one as well coming towards Oakville.
Yeah, it looks almost like when this tornado started, Nick, or actually almost to where it is now. That velocity signature looks almost the same. So I know that they're trying to get confirmation of this tornado on the ground, and I'm almost positive that when we do see it confirmed on the ground, it's that radar, just based on that velocity signature, that is a huge tornado. So potentially there. We don't have confirmation yet. But I do imagine that once this comes out, it will be a tornado emergency as well, which is very scary.
There's a look at the Tuscaloosa and Fayette County storm, just briefly. The velocity signature not quite as impressive, but they did confirm a tornado with this one. Likely somewhere, I would assume. Let's see what the Weather Service actually said here within the last update. They said there's a damaging tornado. This is located 13 miles northeast of Gordo or near Ashcroft Corner. So that's going to be right there where that arrow is. So it looks like now it may be passing somewhere in between, let's say, Barry and Tuscaloosa at this point. But again, very hard to get a good reading on the velocity signature on that one. But the far more impressive one is obviously back in Mississippi. That's kind of stealing all of the thunder right now, no pun intended. But that's just a very scary radar signature. And again, winds still right around 200 miles per hour. The latest velocity scan should be coming in any second now. And I guarantee it's not going to look any different. This is not one that's just going to lift and it's going to go away. But those of you, Laurel, this is going to be a close call. This is going to be extremely close. And I don't. It's too early to say right now if it'll miss you. but the early indications is that it'll stay to your northwest. But it's too early to tell. But those of you up in SoSo, I think, would be more concerned. That would be along State Route 28, still coming along US 84, and also portions of State Route 29 coming in the path of that one too. So that's coming up over the next couple minutes. Again, very noisy storm, very scary radar signatures continue, and again, I continue to see winds very close to 200 miles per hour on a consistent basis. So again, this is not a storm that's going anywhere. If we take you back to the 3D look, it's still there, and it looks just as impressive. Again, likely a wedge tornado. When we see that wide of a rotation signature like that, that's a very, very clear sign. There's the latest scan now, hopefully. Okay, now the latest scan has jumped quite a ways out there towards... looks like that's in between. I want to make sure this matches up correctly. Let's see, is this in between? Okay, so that just passed through Collins. So this is a frame or two behind yet, but again, this is showing you that the tornado is still on the ground and still doing damage. This is about 1 or 2 scans ago where the normalized rotation product was maxed out, but you can still see the tornado very clearly. And based on that particular scan, it appears to me that some of the rotation could be as high as 30,000 feet into the air. So that's extremely, extremely impressive. That's, again, not something that we see every day here. So, Brant, I need to take a quick call, so I'll let you talk for just a second.
Okay. I'm actually going to step away after you come back, Nick. So, again, we just wanted to come on briefly to, just in case anybody had family members. I know there isn't a ton of you watching. I'm actually going to pull that up real quick. There's 6 of you watching right now, so the 6 of you watching, you can go ahead and comment in the comment section where you're from, just so we can get an idea of where our fans are watching from. The reason we wanted to come on is because I know a lot of people are focused on the South right now. Number one, because of the current situation that's going on in our country with the virus. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. And this is adding to the anxiety. So this is a very, very dangerous situation for the Deep South. And this is why we've taken the time. We're not streaming on Facebook right now, but we are streaming on YouTube, just so for those who want to watch, can watch. I know some of you might have family members down in the Deep South, so this is why we wanted to come on, just in case you did and you want to know what's going on. So you're currently looking at the velocity image for the tornado emergency that just moved out of Collins County in Mississippi, just south of, yes, there is a town called Hot Coffee, and I'm not pronouncing that right, or I'm not pronouncing that wrong, I should say. South of Hot Coffee, getting ready to move into Jones County, Mississippi right now with the debris ball. A lot of the times when we say debris ball, there's a certain part of the storm, which is usually with a hook, that shows us it is debris in the air, and that's what you're seeing. As we've said numerous times that we've seen on reflectivity, right now you're looking at the velocity image on screen, right where that yellow triangle is. That's where the tightest rotation is. That's where you might have winds in excess of 200 miles per hour wrapping in a very, very small area, and that's where your tornado is going to be. So we just got a person from South Carolina, so hello from South Carolina. A little bit of everybody all over the country right now is focused on this part. So it's a very big day. I don't know how many of you are familiar with April 27th outbreak that did occur in Alabama, but this is very reminiscent to the strength and to the overall coverage of what happened that day. So again, right now you're looking on your screen of the velocity image just east of Collins, Mississippi, north of Seminary, Mississippi, and that is where a very, very large destructive tornado is currently down doing damage. And I am getting a few reports. They're kind of flowing in here very slowly because the internet, sources are very clogged right now with the amount of information that's trying to be put through, because this is a very there's a lot of eyes on this system storm right now. So again, we don't usually, and I will say we do not usually get a mesoscale discussion, which a mesoscale discussion is when the Storm Prediction Center in Oklahoma talks about a general area and what the risks are, what the atmosphere is like. We don't usually get a mesoscale discussion for a particular storm, and that shows you the intensity of this, is that not only is everybody in the country looking at this, but the Storm Prediction Center in Norman Oklahoma, which issues the entire U.S. Severe weather forecast and the fire forecast and stuff. They're focusing on this storm too. So I think just for us in the weather community, that speaks volumes about this storm right now. And Nick, I do see you're back, so I want to bring you back in here. I did say that I tried to explain to them what the current situation is that we're dealing with, the intensity, all the eyes are on it. We are getting some damage reports, but again, there's such a tremendous amount of information coming in right now that it's very hard to dissect it because the sources that we're using are very, very flooded right now with tons of information.
Yeah, and so again, getting some radar data back from Jackson on that one product. So we'll switch it over to this, which is keeping it updated. It's about to cross into the next polygon here, and like I said, folks, this again is just not. This is not something you take. This is not something you take lightly. Gate-to-gate shear still at 183, 184 miles per hour, and as Brant said, obviously this is not in Ohio, so we're not talking much about this right now. But up in our
Nick,
neck of the woods, yeah, go ahead.
I will say that before you stepped away, you were talking about that southernmost storm producing tornado, and we do have a confirmation that that is a tornado on the ground now.
Yeah, I'm not overly surprised with that one. A good call out and a good confirmation. So, but again, this one here that we've got now, this is again likely an EF4, EF5 type tornado. This is again not something we don't even normally say that much when we're talking about tornado warnings, even up in our neck of the woods. So, but again, to see that, just really impressive. Latest scan there from Jackson continue to show that the scans are a little slower right now than normal. So this tornado is likely a little closer to so-so. And it's going to be still a very close call for Laurel. I would still be in a safe place right now for at least the next few minutes until we can kind of get a better read as to where this thing is going to actually end up. But if we take a look at the velocity, and again, even all the way up to, try to look at it here, even at the 4.0 degree tilt, we are still seeing rotation, and it's still very intense. And that's, again, that's really just speaks volumes to just how intense this is. There's your latest scan now. And if we look at the gate-to-gate shear now, it looks like it may have went up just a little bit. Yeah, we're right now sitting at basically 200 miles per hour right now, gate-to-gate shear. So that, again, speaking volumes, reflectivity, going to show you the exact same picture. There's your debris ball. The reflectivity is not doing this justice, in my opinion. This is, again, really, really intense stuff and not something to mess around with. Be in a safe place until these storms have passed by. As Brant said, the one back here towards Monticello and Prentice and near Bassfield, this one also on the ground. Put the radar into motion for you. Let's see if Bassfield. So yeah, it looks like this one's gonna. I bet they take Bassfield out of the warning when they cancel. Like it's based on the latest trends. It's gonna head up more towards Prentice than it is over towards Bassfield. But this one here again with the tornado emergency on it. That'll be heading up towards Sandersville and Heidelberg and coming through so-so in the next couple of minutes. So that's, again, very dangerous. And it looks like Brant, they did issue a... Okay, no, Brant, they went PDS watch now for Alabama. They changed it. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that again. They did go now with a PDS tornado watch for Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and Montgomery down into southwest Alabama, including down to Mobile. So that is really impressive. Again, that's not something that we see every day either. So we'll watch things very closely here for you. But again, that's where things stand right now. Again, a tornado emergency for southeastern Mississippi. We're going to take you back now to kind of a full look at things. We'll leave the tornado emergency for you in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And we'll be back after a bit.